Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Smith. I'm the mayor of the city of Vader. It's my honor and privilege to welcome all in attendance this evening. We particularly acknowledge the presence of our three reliable members of the city council.
Seeing if that's on.
Huh?
It's on now.
It should be.
Yeah.
And we're going to turn that off. Ah, that's much better. Okay. The council chambers will get warm very rapidly with the hot air I'm anticipating we'll enjoy here shortly. But with that having been said, we'll officially declare this council meeting convened at 6:03 p.m. We'll invite our city clerk to conduct our roll call.
Okay. Andy Wilson.
Present.
Jason Daly.
Here.
Joe Shy.
Here.
And Ruth Creer.
Ruth, apparently, as you indicate, called earlier and to report that she's on a call at this moment in time. She's going to, she hoped that it would be over in time for the meeting to start. So we anticipate her imminent arrival.
I excuse her.
Okay, Mr. Wilson submitted a motion to consider her current absent excused. Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Seconded by Mr. Daly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Proceed.
And lastly, Mayor Smith.
Present and accounted for. Then we do still have a quorum, so we will proceed now and would invite all to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Shy, would you do the honors?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless our America.
Well said. With that, we'll proceed with the mayor's report. And at the outset, I should inform the council that I regrettably have yet another scheduling conflict. So I have to depart the chambers at 6:30 on the dot. But Joe Shy, the mayor pro tem, is aware of this, and he will handle the proceedings upon my departure. So with that in mind, I did want to report to the council, those of you who may not have had an opportunity to attend, about the 4th of July celebration. By all reports and feedback that I got, it was a resounding success. From my perception, it was the largest crowd that we've had in, I think, 5 years that we've been hosting this. And this was the first year that the city has financed it and sponsored it and done it completely and legally, which is a step in the right direction. So, all that having been said, I think that the overarching bottom line for me is that it was a resounding success. And I commend the councilors and those of you who participated in it and supported it in the various ways that you did. Any thoughts or observations on that?
The only thing I observed was that it started a little bit early. I had people come back and say they had read before, and I think that I even read that it was going to start at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, it certainly did, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because we had the 5-member 4th of July committee do some post-event analysis, and that was one of the noted issues. And we were pretty much dependent upon the fireworks blaster offer, Reggie Smith. And so it was what happened in the heat of the
Wanted to make comment.
event. Yeah, I appreciate that. Any other thoughts or observations? Okay. Then I wanted to bring to the council and to the audience's attention that Mr. Wilson in particular, you've made note in these public council meetings, issues relating to the garbage pile and the abandoned houses. And did we not mention that we were going to use that garbage pile across from the fire station as our litmus test?
It's funny. On the way down here, I walked down the street. I turned around and looked, and it's gone.
Yes,
So.
it's gone. It wasn't, I mean, it's a little thing, but in the city of Vader, little things add up to a lot. We did have an observation from a member.
Here, one word, it isn't really gone, the guy shoveled it all into the garage last week. It's out of sight, but it's not gone.
Really?
Yes.
Well, then it's an optical illusion.
Yes, it is.
Out of sight, out of mind.
No, we
Are you
don't.
sure?
We thought
Thought
we
you
saw
saw
him, yeah.
Getting picked up.
But maybe I saw him loading it, and maybe he was not loading, he was shifting, but I
He was
didn't.
loading it into the garage last week when I watched him for a few minutes.
I'll be darned. Well, thank you for that. You don't know if the vehicle is still there,
Yeah.
so that's, it's the beginning salvo of our ongoing effort. And of course, we hope that you're all well aware of the street chip and sealing that's going on, that any improvement in our streets impacts the number one priority for the residents of Vader, and that's our street surfaces. I know that Councilmember Shy is going to provide a more of a detailed report on that later in the meeting. But I point that out as a matter of progress. And it's a little thing, and yet it's big for us. There, and that concludes the mayor's report. We'll now proceed with the council reports. Anybody would like to make a comment or two at this moment?
Well, I'm looking at the budget, and I've seen this paper from the attorney. I'm concerned about our budget with so much money we're spending for attorney fees, because we don't need this. Any city council person should know what an RCW is to appoint another person to take in a vacancy place. And I just don't think it's proper for us spending all of this money for attorney. We're spending way too much, period. I just want to make my comment on it.
So, how much do you think that it cost the city to have Jennifer Robertson prepare this document?
Jennifer Robertson prepared that document a long time ago. She just sent us an updated copy with an updated date. She had prepared it for another city, and when I was on the phone with her about something else, and I told her what was going on, and she said, well, I'll send this over, you can give it to council just in case anybody has any questions. So
Yeah.
it wasn't any, she didn't spend any time preparing it. It was charged to another city when she prepared it for them.
Yes. So, and I, being the mayor, who's responsible to oversee the expenditures and given the budgetary guidelines that we have, I would have to take exception to your observation that we're spending in excess of what's been budgeted for it. So, frankly, I think your comment is maybe well-intentioned, but it may not actually be factually based. So that's how I would respond.
Just a matter of RCW that we all follow. And that's why I said is that it's an attorney fee that I'm concerned about.
Duly noted. My experience as 9 years in this seat as mayor is that as much as we think we might know the RCWs, there are thousands of them, and I have never once regretted the counsel and advice given by highly trained legal professionals, particularly ours, who is a sitting member of the Bellevue City Council. She is as wise an expert on these matters as any human being I've ever known. And we're very, very fortunate to have her expertise. But duly noted. Thank you. So we would recognize a recruit, thank you. We're grateful
Sorry
for your
about that.
presence. No, you're out saving lives. And that's literal, so thank you. All right, any other council comments? Hearing none, let's proceed with the agenda. Next item is to approve this evening's agenda. I don't personally have any changes. Yes, Mr.
I'd like to add onto the agenda discussion of the ongoing street projects.
Yes.
So I could
Okay.
report out as well as possibly get an approval for additional work.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion to add it to like point number 7?
Absolutely. Make a motion to add item 7, ongoing street project discussion.
Okay. Mr. Shai submitted a motion to the council to add a brief discussion. How did you articulate it?
Street projects.
On current and upcoming street projects, and add that on at the end as item number 7. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mrs. Creer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that motion is carried. Okay. So now let's proceed with the minutes from the previous council meeting.
I don't think we did the agenda approval.
I was wondering if we had just inserted 7 and approved that, or if we included that. So thank you, Mr. David, appreciate that. All right, let's go back and officially approve the agenda with the addition of item number 7.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of item number 7.
Okay, now you've heard that motion to approve the agenda with the inclusion of item number 7. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. David. Now, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we'll proceed with the approval of minutes from our previous council meeting.
I don't think I can make a motion to approve them since I wasn't there.
Have you read them?
I have read them, but I don't know if they're accurate because I wasn't there.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2016.
Okay,
Well, on the minutes approval of the city council meeting, 6/23, there was a motion that I made that was not in the minutes. I made a motion that we appoint Mr. Robert Sharp to the position of city Costello, and all of a sudden it's gone. I don't see anything about it in here.
well,
In my recollection, I talked to Andy about it, I thought he'd mentioned that, but it was after the fact that we had talked about Ruth mentioning, waiting until Joe was here before we made any.
yes. Well, actually, that took place in the outset of the mayor's report. I remember it specifically, and we reached the conclusion that it would only be appropriate to do it on the agenda item.
Well, I never-
So I would offer that as an explanation for its absence, but duly noted. Okay.
I still stick with the RCW.
Okay. Very good. Well, we still need appropriate action on the minutes.
We're just waiting for a second.
Okay, do we have a second?
I would second the minutes to the last meeting with regards to Andy Wilson's comment on, because I don't remember how it came about, how it should be put in the minutes.
Yeah.
I'd have to listen to the YouTube thing, see where it came out.
So what you're suggesting is that we need to modify the motion to make it perhaps contingent upon the inclusion of Mr. Wilson's.
Yeah, I'd like to do
Okay.
that.
Okay. Well, the individual who submitted the motion should rephrase it. It's the only one who can,
If she wants to.
if you want to.
So I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from 6/23/2016 with, I don't know how to word this correctly.
Well,
The concerns of
how about we redraft it and bring it up at the next meeting? You'll have 2 sets of meeting minutes. That'll give me a chance to review it, and I will give it to you guys in your next packet. You can approve it at the next meeting with whatever amendments.
I'm good with that.
Perfect.
So if you want to, you have to rescind your original motion.
I rescind my original.
Okay, excellent. And with that appropriate action, do we need to make a motion? I'm not entirely sure. Why don't we go ahead and make a
Well,
motion?
no one makes a motion, then it doesn't go anywhere, and we'll just apply it next time.
Well, let's make a motion to do that.
So I make a motion that we hold our agenda meeting minutes until the next meeting, so we can confirm how the wording of Mr. Wilson's request has come about.
Okay. All right. Mr. Daly has submitted for council consideration a motion to hold in abeyance approval of the minutes for the June 23rd council meeting until our next council meeting, and at which time the city clerk will include Mr. Wilson's commentary. Is that captured?
Yes.
All righty. Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second
Seconded by Mrs. Creel. All in favor, say aye.
it.
Are there any opposed?
Did Mr. Wilson vote? I didn't hear him vote.
It's
You
okay.
vote.
I heard 3, so I think we're.
I just have to keep track of who votes what, and I didn't.
Did you vote in approval of that?
Okay.
Let's proceed now with the voucher approval.
And the voucher approval for the first half of July 2016 of $26,730.91. I make the motion, we approve it.
Okay. Mr. Wilson submits a motion to approve the voucher expenditures for the first half of July in the amount noted. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Shy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll now proceed with public comment.
There's none.
Oh, Jim.
Can I make a public comment? I didn't sign yet.
Well, in the interest of time, I would opt that we proceed with the official portion of our agenda. We do have one comment from a member of the public. Does council want to approve?
Yes.
Mr. Cronin's does have a comment, he just forgot to sign up. May he make his comment?
I didn't see any supportive head nodding from the council.
As a member of the park board, I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Okay, duly noted.
Take it away, Mr. Cronin.
Thank you.
Well,
You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
no.
Yeah.
The night before last, we had some kids got into the men's restroom over here at the park and defecated on the floor and the walls, and
Did a mural with it.
and we went over to the church and reviewed their video that they have, and I think we'll be able to take care of this, catch those 2 kids. And the other one that's a bigger one concern is we finally we got power at the park after all these years, so.
All right.
All around applause.
So, no.
So what time did this defecation happen?
It happened at 4 o'clock and ran till 5.
Wow.
So it's nothing that we can.
They were
do,
in and
like,
out,
lower
in and out.
I
and,
just was wondering if it was something that was like after hours
No,
or
it
late.
was daylight hours.
When you get the kids, they can do a DNA analysis.
Well, the one kid's got a scooter with the handlebars on it, And the other one's got a bike that's distinct too, so.
If you want in the other
Alright.
house.
Yeah.
Did you have more comment? Okay, you still have a minute and a half or so.
If you want any more details, I discovered the scene of the crime, so
Yes,
if anybody wants to know what
yeah.
happened.
I think,
And they did it, the part, whoever cleaned it up did a superb job,
Yeah,
because I couldn't have done until this weekend.
yeah,
Yeah, they did, it looked spotless when I checked it.
Thank you.
yeah, when you decide to open your parks to the public, you embrace the realities of human misbehavior. But it has been duly reported to the county sheriff's officers, and we're grateful to those who provided the evidence in that manner. We did collect some of the evidence, I hope. No,
You haven't
I'm
asked
joking.
me.
Oh, my
God. I
I had to ask.
just reported the
We got
incident.
stools.
Let's give it to Ruth.
Mhm. Oh, boy. Okay, well, moving on quickly. I've always said that the waste treatment issues in this community are our number one priority, after the streets, of course. Had to get out. All right, well, let's quickly proceed with our city business. Item number one is an important matter, obviously. They're all important, but after nearly a month, the council is this evening, I think, in a position to respond to the council vacancy and position number 4 from the result of Judy Costello's resignation. And so, as I'm sure that hopefully you've had a chance to review in the document provided to us by our city attorney, I would invite the council to proceed with nominations to fill that vacancy. Mr. Wilson?
I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Robert Sharp to Judy Costello's position number
Position number 4.
4.
Okay. Okay, we've heard the motion submitted by Mr. Wilson to nominate Robert Charlton to fill that vacancy. So, do we have a second for that nomination?
I think Robert's been a really long-standing member of this community. I think he was a first pick for our Judy Costello, and I think it's a good fit for this council. So I would give it a second. Yep.
Second that. Okay, seconded by Mr. Daly. Okay. Now is an opportunity for other members to make comments or observations prior to putting it to a vote.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, in this procedure, would it be appropriate to allow all the nominations
Mhm.
first
Should.
instead of just one nomination and then
Well,
vote?
we could.
That was my understanding, but,
I've seen it done
okay, I'm just
in a
not
number of
sure.
ways.
I didn't know there was many,
Yeah.
many to vote on. What are our options?
Well, do we, if we want to hear the nominations, are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mike Parson.
Okay. Ruth Creer then has officially submitted a nomination for Mike Parsons. Do we have a second for that nomination?
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, it's been seconded by Mr. Shy. Okay.
I'd also like it to be known that Julie Ho, is that his, how do you say your last name, Julie? Hashlam, sorry about that. Right. Hedge. She was also interested in being nominated, if someone was interested in nominating her as well.
Well, inasmuch as there are only 4 council members, and there have been 2 nominations, both seconded by another member of the council, I think that it logistically is impossible.
Can I rescind my second and allow us some time to think about all these other, because I think Ms. Greer here didn't know about some, I didn't know about. one or two. I'd like to. How's that?
But in order to alter a motion that's sitting before the council, I'm not familiar with the
It's
process
good.
of rescinding your
I mean,
second.
I'm good on the second. I just don't want to keep us from,
I know what you're trying to
Yeah.
say, because I was unaware of the lady there that wanted to,
Well, but if it doesn't alter your perspective, and there is still a motion that is under consideration by the council, I mean, we could, I suppose, somehow, if somebody were willing to make a nomination to postpone consideration, and if you could get sufficient votes to engage or support that motion, maybe that's a strategy, but
I'm good. I just was thinking that.
I don't think you need to rescind your second, but
No.
somebody
I
could
know.
submit a motion to postpone the official vote on the matter to see what vote emerges on that motion.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
We're also new.
I know,
so-
I know, myself too, I'm not sure, but,
This is unusual.
so I just want to clarify, if somebody were to make a motion to wait on the voting,
Yes.
then those two nominations would still stand,
Yeah. Mhm.
but if they waited till the next council meeting, there would be the opportunity to add someone else to the nomination, or would that
Yeah,
motion
somebody would have to
rescind the two?
rescind.
was there not a process that people let the city know that they were interested, or?
No, the council, historically in the city of Vader, the council members simply review options, and you reach out and you try to identify individuals who are qualified. And other cities do advertise and such, but it isn't, there isn't any RCW that dictates that has to be done.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep with my second. Mike Parsons, I believe you do a great job on our golf board. You're new to this town. I'd like to see you pursue that. And but
So by rescinding your second,
He's
then.
not rescinding his
No,
second.
yeah.
He said
Well,
he's
let's-
not.
Well, let's put the matter to a vote, okay? It's not that complicated.
right.
From my perspective, I think we have two excellent candidates. Let's, given your commentary, are we ready to put it to a vote? Because you have four, and if it's a 2-2, then the mayor is in the position of the tiebreaker. So I have 60 seconds before.
We got to go.
Yep. So let's, is
I
there any
could
other
put it to a
discussion?
vote, yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, then let's go with the first nomination. Let's see what the vote turns out to be. Okay. Those in favor of Robert Charlton filling the vacancy number 4 on the Vader City Council, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed?
Those
opposed
to Robert
of
Charlton.
that nomination,
Oh.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it's 2-2. So I am in the ignominious position of having to decide Mr. Charlton, whom I know has served the community well. But my tie-breaking vote would be that I would support the nomination of Mike Parsons for a variety of reasons, not intending to be offensive to any single person, Mr. Charlton in particular. So let's now address the other motion involving Mike Parsons. Those in favor of Mike Parsons filling vacancy number 4 in the City Council, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by the same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
So it's 2-2. So by RCW, the mayor in these situations cast a tie-breaking vote, and I would be in support of that motion to seat Mike Parsons on the Vader City Council for reasons that I think that he's demonstrated his fidelity to the community. He's got resources that he's generous with, and I think that he's a young man of energy and has a vision for the community. So at this point in time, I would suggest that we move forward, since I know that he is present here, and we, of custom, have a swearing-in ceremony. So we've got the swearing-in document, and I'd like to proceed with that. Okay. And I thank the council for your civil action in this process. So I'd invite Mr. Parsons to come forward. Okay.
Sorry on that.
Well, I guess it'll be a matter of the lawsuit.
And we're getting the camera so we can document this historic event.
That's quite the photogenic shirt you have on for this one.
Seven. That's right.
It's festive.
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Parsons, you raise your right hand. Okay. And you'll repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Mike Parsons,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the state of Washington
and the laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and laws of the United States of America,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially perform
and discharge the duties of the City Council
and discharge the duties of the City Council
of the City of Vader, Washington,
of the City of Vader, Washington,
according to law
according to law
and the best of my ability.
and the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. All righty. Did we get it?
We didn't get you guys both looking this direction.
Okay. One more time.
Just a second, I gotta get my phone to catch up. Okay, ready? There we
Good.
go. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me get my signature on this. Over here. Yeah, I'll put your name right there. Okay.
Michael, I'll address that for you after the meeting.
All right, well, obviously, such events are always dramatic and historic, so thank you, one and all. At this point, it would be appropriate to move on to item number 2, and I hope to be present, have a seat there, he's officially on board. This is an important matter, and I hope that you've had a chance to read the background perspective that has been prepared for you. A lot of input and research has been behind this. And so I hope that the council is, after careful deliberation, will make a reasonable course of action on it. It involves our waste treatment plant. So with that, Mr. Shai, I hate to abandon you, but I have to run. Okay. The gavel is yours.
You
Okay.
pump the whole motion up, and then you just bail
Then
out.
run out the door.
All right then. It is my understanding that over the course of the last few years, BHC has been drafting options as far as our wastewater treatment plan is concerned. The concern is that Repeatedly, we've always asked, what about other options, given that all the options they show us are just, full-size, multi-million-dollar treatment facilities, and we know there are other options out there. And so the concern of the city is that before we go with any of those options, we'd like to hear from other engineering firms if they could present some other out-of-the-box thinkings and perhaps more non-standard options. And so that is what this is about, getting more bids for possible out-of-the-box thinkings that will be lower cost to the city. Did that capture the essence of it, Jill?
Pretty much.
So hopefully everyone has gotten a chance to take a look at this. The possible negative is that June 30th of 2017, next year, the option to spend the grant funding, there's a package. It's both 50% grant and 50% loan. If we don't complete the design work by then, we could lose that money. But it is the mayor's thinking and the city's thinking that we could get all this done in that amount of time and save the community a great deal of money in the long run.
So they want to take our effluent and sprinkle it out?
It's a possible option. It's one of many different.
Do they know where to be thinking about it, or? I'm reading this and don't
Jill,
say-
please
they
fill
don't
in the
say any
blanks.
Okay.
specifics, so
No,
are we
there
gonna
aren't
have, like, a meeting
specifics.
or anything
No,
about
there
this?
aren't specifics yet. The only thing we're asking right now is, do you want to have another engineering firm look at this? The items that are listed here are additional options that the mayor has become aware of that might be cost saving that the original engineering firm did not address. And so there has not been any research or anything done into these, but he is aware that these options might save us some money if our engineering firm looked into it.
But there's no long-lasting timeframes or,
Regarding what exactly?
regarding how long these things would be allowed as far as sprinkling our stuff around.
Oh, that, like I said,
Right.
that's all way yet to be determined. And council can still, even if that does become an option, council can still choose against the recommendation of the engineering firm. But that's just one of the ideas that have come up that the mayor has heard about that might possibly save us money. It might not work. It might not be something that the city could do, but we're just trying to give you some examples of some things that have not been addressed yet and the mayor feels that should be at least looked at
Right.
before saying you have to spend all this money. So,
I think the
So-
more options that we explore, the better.
If you do any digging, if you do a little bit of research and look around what other cities are doing, there are a lot of other non-standard technologies that are out there that people are using that were never presented to us from our current engineering company. And some of the options listed in here are just things that have been stumbled upon, and we would like those to be considered and offered to us as a possibility, instead of just giant facilities like our neighbors have gotten. And so that's what this does. Just solicits the options from other engineering firms.
I think that's great.
I'll make the motion. I move to seek out a new engineering firm to complete the amendment. Yes?
can you do that?
Can I?
You can?
Can't
Oh,
I?
Okay, yes. Good, thank you for being here.
I move to seek out a new engineering firm to complete the amendment to the draft wastewater treatment plan amendment and direct city staff to proceed with advertising as required by Washington State procurement standards and approve the publication of the request for qualifications as provided in Exhibit 1.
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion?
I think the more options, the better, right?
It would seem to be the right thing to do for our citizens.
I think so.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Item 3 on the agenda, RMSA representatives Roger Neal and Dylan Anderson regarding special event insurance. If you remember, a month ago or so, Judy Costello was interested in why we needed special event insurance, and our city clerk said, well, let's get the folks here that are specialized in that. So here they are. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Roger Neal. I'm the program manager with the Association of Washington Cities Risk Management Service Agency. I have my colleague Dylan Anderson with us tonight. Dylan's one of our newer members, and he had a chance to come out to see a city council meeting. So let me just, first of all, before I start, I think, council, you should feel so lucky that you have so many citizens that are involved. You should feel lucky that you have a number of citizens that have interest being on the council. We have cities in the state that they cannot get council members. And so I think you should feel very lucky about that. Welcome to the city family.
Thank you.
You now have 90 days, the clock is ticking, to get your open public meetings training.
We've already talked about that.
Good.
And we have that online if you'd like that. So let me, if I might, just another observation. When the mayor pro tem is chairing the meeting, the mayor pro tem is still considered a council member. So that's why the mayor pro tem in this case can make the motion, and the mayor pro tem can also vote. The mayor pro tem does not lose their right as a council member. They're simply functioning to run your meeting for you. And so the RCWs do allow that, and I just thought I'd
Thank you.
point that out to you, so you were very proper in being able to make that motion, council member.
Right.
So the RMSA, we call it the RMSA. The RMSA was formed in 1989, and for some of us that have been around a while, back in the mid-1980s, the commercial insurance industry basically came to the point and said, we will not insure cities and towns. And there were no options, at least affordable options. So back in the late 1980s is when risk pooling came back for cities and towns. Currently, we have over 95 members, and I want you to think of yourselves, council, as you're co-owner of the RMSA. And it's a membership pool. It's not an insurance company. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those differences, and then we'll talk about special events. So the concept of risk pools is really that this is the ideal example of local control. They were crafted to meet cities' needs. Our board of directors are council members and mayors. Mayor Smith used to be on our board of directors. And so you as local entities have input into what we do as an organization. You're also sharing the risk of losses and the benefits with over 95 other cities, literally from the four corners of the state. Now, our pool specializes in small communities, like Vader. Our biggest member is Wenatchee. We're not interested in working with cities of 70, 80, 90,000. There's another pool that does that. We work with cities like Vader and towns and that. We don't sell insurance like your insurance agent does for your home. It's not a commodity. It's a partnership between you, the 95, 96 other cities, and us. And that's a significant difference. Commercial insurance companies are in business to make money. That's okay. Oh, I better ask, do I have any insurance agents in the group? Okay. Okay. I used to be one. Our purpose is to reduce risk and enhance public services, which in turn saves saves you money and improves the outcome for both the city of Vader and the taxpayers. That's why we exist. And the relationship between the city and the RMSA, again, it's a partnership, which working together helps broaden that. And there's also obligations because we're partners in this. So, yes, we have an insurance component, but we do a lot more than that. We, as other pools, have developed unique and focused expertise in public entities. This is what we do every day. We don't do homeowners insurance. We don't do car insurance for drivers. We don't do the tavern or the church. We do only public entities. And so we focus on the needs of public entities, and we focus on what some of those risk areas are. And it's all with the goal of helping work with our cities and members to help them enhance their operations, reduce the number of claims, and when claims happen, minimize the impact on you. So, RMSA works to improve your risk profile, and every city has a risk profile, through roughly 5 things or 4 things. First of all, it's education. We spend a lot of time, effort on providing education. We have, as Jill knows, we have free resources that are available online. We do online training. We do training for councils and how the roles and responsibilities of what the council is and what those procedures are. We do a lot of that kind of training around the state. We feel very strongly about the fact that if you're educated, you're going to make better decisions. Secondly, we do loss prevention consulting. We do a lot of work. How do you do a parade? I'm going to use Vader in a minute as an example. Okay. In fact, I use Vader as an example on special events very positively all around the state. I'm going to do that. And seriously, I'm going to share that with you in a minute. So we do a lot of consulting. We get questions every day. How do you do this? How do we do this? What about? And it covers the scope of things. I mean, one call might be about a parade, and the next call might be about trees that are dying in a city park, and the next call might be how do we terminate an employee. Oh, by the way, then the next call is, our sewer system's backing up. What can we do about that? That's the kind of stuff we deal with every day. But one of the things that we try and do with our members across the state of Washington is be consistent. We try and be consistent in our approach. Everyone's different, and we have to evaluate that, but our approach tends to be consistent. We're also consistent with other pools in the state, and there are other risk pools in the state. And we participate in a couple of professional organizations, and we are consistent with how risk pools across the country deal with these issues. And about 80% of the cities and towns across this country are a member of a risk pool. In Washington, there's a handful of cities that are not a member of a risk pool. And then the larger, Seattle, Tacoma, Vancouver, Spokane, they're self-insured. The rest of the 281 cities and towns in the state are members of a risk pool. So we try and be consistent, and we're consistent with those and nationally. And that's one of the things that we do is, because of our ties with national organizations, a lot of the lessons that we learn, that we share with our cities about how to do things safely or how to prevent accidents or lawsuits are because of things that happen someplace else. So since we're asked to talk about special events, let me just give you an example. Bounce houses. Well, we know that approximately 38,000 kids are injured every year. They go to emergency rooms in bounce houses. But they're safe, Roger. They're just soft on it. If you're not sleeping tonight, go onto YouTube, put in bounce houses, and you can see all sorts of examples of them blowing through the air with kids inside of them. One of them a couple weeks ago landed in power lines. But there are ways to reduce that from happening. Simple ways. And those are the lessons that we learn and share with your cities. Secondly, we try and be objective in our view of helping you manage your risks. And especially in smaller towns, people get really passionate about things. And sometimes it's the barking dog, and sometimes it's the garbage that's now in the person's garage versus in their front yard. And sometimes it's about having community events, and they get really passionate about it. Well, we're trying to take an objective view from a risk management standpoint of how we can help you do those things appropriately and safely. And lastly, because we manage your claims, we provide for your city and all of our other members financial security. You were talking about some budget issues tonight, and I'm not being critical, but the city of Vader doesn't have a lot of extra money. And if you had to all of a sudden come up with $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to pay a claim, that'd probably be difficult. And that's part of the reason you're a member of a pool, because we are able to do that. And you pay an annual contribution, but we are able to do that. So that from a cash flow standpoint, that's another factor of how we help you reduce your risk. Yeah, if you want to be like the city of Seattle and put millions and millions of dollars in the bank for reserves to pay out lawsuits, you could do that. Probably not an easy thing to do with Vader, right? So we provide suggestions that are based on our professional knowledge. In our group, in RMSA, I was thinking about that this morning, we probably have over 60 years of experience in doing risk management, working with cities, whether it's claims, whether it's loss prevention, those types of things. I myself am a former department head. I've been an elected official, so I've sat on your side of the table, and so we have those experiences. And we try and give you our professional knowledge, but we don't tell you how to run your city. Ultimately, those are your decisions. Okay? So quite simply, risk pools are member-owned, they're member-governed, and they're member-driven. So I wanted to give the council, especially since you have a couple new council members, especially one very new council member, a little bit of an oversight on what a risk pool is. Folks think of us commonly as insurance, but we do so much more than a normal insurance carrier does. So let me use the city of Vader as an example, and then I'll be happy to try and answer some questions. Here, would you pass that out? So some of you were on the council. Councilmember Wilson was, but in March of this year, the Association of Washington Cities, as we do every 2 months, published a magazine called City Vision. And this whole version was focusing on risk management. So we made you a copy, and I'm going to embarrass somebody in the room, but we made you a copy because Vader was highlighted as one of our articles in here. And this is a story that Jill and I worked on several years ago. And Jill called me up and she said, Roger, I got somebody in town, found out it was a council member, that wants to do a soapbox derby. And I said, well, first of all, Jill, let's not use the word soapbox derby. I think that's a registered trademark. So what did we come up with? Gravity assisted?
Gravity races.
Well, we call it the gravity races, but there was another, I can't remember.
Non-motorized gravity assisted, we came up with something funny. And we talked about that. And so on special events, one of the real issues is always, whose event is it? I read an article today about one of our members that just had a street dance. And the Chamber of Commerce was involved, and the Merchants Association was involved, and the city was involved, and the square dancers were involved, and I'm going, I don't know whose event this is. And I bet you none of them do either. And if something had gone wrong, it would have been lots of finger pointing and all. So Jill and I talked about it, and we said, okay, this is not a City of Vader event. This is an event that's happening in the city of Vader. And that's a very different thing. And so we said, you know what? Okay, we're going to recommend that the event organizers get special events insurance. Now that makes Jill really popular. Because this is just a citizen who's trying to do something nice for the community. And Jill says, well, this rule says you need to spend a couple $100. And well, what could go wrong? This is Vader. What could go wrong?
It's the title of a book.
Yeah, it is a title.
What could go wrong?
So I, unfortunately, during that event, one of the spectators was injured. And so special events insurance, because Jill had been very unpopular, and I remember this distinctly, on Monday she called me up and she goes, you know what? The folks that really didn't like me a couple weeks ago now think I'm a real hero kind of comment, because we had protected them financially. Because you know what, if that person got injured and said, okay, I'm going to sue the Neals because they put on this event, they could have lost all their assets. So this is called risk transfer. Who's appropriate for so that's about special events insurance. So I'm going to ask you, the council, a question, and I'm happy to counsel and try and answer your questions on the topic. I try to make this not real insurance technical jargon, but I think, if, and let's use your parks as an example. If someone damages your park, who should pay for that?
They should.
Okay. And that's what your park regulations say.
Mhm.
But what guarantee do you have that they're going to have the money to pay for it?
Zero.
And that's what special events insurance does. It gives them protection first, and it also then provides that financial assurance that if something happens, the city's going to be able to recover their cost, to have that damage taken care of by the people that caused the damage. So that's kind of the concept behind special events insurance, is make the people that are responsible and did the damage responsible for it. And it gives them the financial back. We get into this on weddings all the time. And people spend thousands of dollars on flowers, but won't spend a couple $100 to get $1 million worth of coverage to protect themselves. Because nothing ever happens, right?
Well, we had that issue just a couple meetings ago. There was some citizens that wanted a wedding, that were going to have a wedding in a park. And once again, Jill was in the hot seat, letting them know that they need to have an insurance for that.
And again, it's
But
Go
the
ahead.
question was, why?
Why?
What Judy was asking was, why does our city coverage not cover events that happen in the park?
because they're not city, are they city events or not?
No.
No.
And what she was saying, or what Jill was saying, is that anytime that you have an event that you send out invitations to bring people to your park, it's not a city event, it's your event, so you have to cover the people on.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it made total sense to me, so.
And so, what councils forget oftentimes is, and citizens forget this, or don't realize it. And I'm not trying to pick on your new council member, but did you just realize that if you were elected to the board of directors of a municipal corporation, the city of Vader is a municipal corporation.
Makes sense.
The city of Vader, being a municipal corporation, is different than your citizens that happen to live in Vader. So it's whose event is it? And you know what? It's not a city of Vader wedding. It's those citizens' wedding. So that's why that now. There's one other aspect here that, according to the park rules that I read, I guess there's still ones that are from 2011. The city has made the decision to charge a fee. I'm not talking about risks. The oil train, the coal train.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not making a political statement on it, but let's just hope the BN keeps those tracks well maintained, right?
And their insurance up,
They're self-insured.
I hope.
And they are a pain in the rear end to deal with because they have some very specific requirements. Dealing with the railroad is tough. You have a policy that you charge a fee for people to use your parks, groups to use your parks. That's fine, that's your decision. Well, because the city charges that fee, you now have lost the protection under what's called the recreational immunity statute. And the recreational immunity statute was written a long time ago. And council member, it's RCW 4.24.210. And no, I don't remember that. I've got to have it in front of me.
Did you say 4.20?
4.24.210. And so the recreational immunity statute was put in place a long time ago, and the whole concept was to encourage landowners, to encourage warehousers, to encourage folks that have property along the river, to allow citizens other people to come onto their land to recreate, to hunt, to fish, that kind of stuff. And over the years, it's been broadened. And so, if you'd like, I can give you a very quick synopsis of the RCW. But if you charge a fee, as you are with a permitting fee, then you lose that protection under the recreational immunity statute. So, you know, that means then that things that potentially you could say, we're not liable, we let you use our land for free, as long as you don't have open and obvious hazards. Somebody gets down in the creek and drowns. Under the recreational immunity statute, we can say, the city, maybe not, but it gives us a position to help defend the city. Okay. Yeah, if there's open obvious hazards, you need to take care of those. Part of that is like, this is why we recommend signage as an example. We've got some members that have boat ramps on the Columbia River, and the current is very fierce. And we unfortunately, in their community, about 350 people. A couple of years ago, a high school exchange student got in the river and drowned. The community was all upset. And that's why we have signs that say dangerous currents, swimming not, you know. So those are the types of things that we do. But you're right, council member, it's really the wedding, it's not a city of Vader event. It's an event that's happening on your property. And the same concept as you all said, who should pay for it? People that do the damage. And that's why you require those things. And it helps protect them. You don't see it that way. I bet you the people that did the downhill, unassisted, motorized, gravity race, they were probably pretty happy when that happened, that they had that protection. So what questions does council have on this topic?
So just a couple weeks ago, 4th of July, we had our 4th of July event, and we had issues acquiring insurance for that event. Could you, Jill kind of explained it to me a little bit could you refresh my memory about how that event happened and why we had to go outside of
I'll try to
your organization
jump in
for that policy?
And correct me if I may. You know, it's not a normal city function for a city, for a municipality to be discharging fireworks. That's just not normally what cities have. Law enforcement, they provide fire protection maybe through a fire district, they have water, and those are the streets, those are functions that cities do. And so from a matter of transferring the risk, because there are a number of, every year, I think from what I saw this year, at least 6 professional fireworks displays that had misfires that caused potential problems. It's a very high risky event. And so this is called risk transfer. We never anticipated that we were going to be covering fireworks events. We don't rate the city and charge you for conducting fireworks events. That's just not an exposure that we had ever anticipated that a city doing. So our recommendation was, let's transfer that coverage to a carrier that specializes in that kind of coverage, so that if something happens, you've transferred the risk to another entity, basically. And that's why we made that recommendation.
Now, we have had a May Day ever since I was a kid. And these days we have like the cakewalk and some things that go on. And that's a Vader sponsored event, but there are some like...
No, it's not.
How can that but not be?
It's always been run by private citizens.
Oh.
It is not a city-sponsored event. However, the council has agreed the last 2 or 3 years to pay the insurance costs for specialty insurance for a handful of events. One is that event.
And that's certainly a number of councils do that. And I think there's a difference between sponsoring and managing. And so a number of cities do that, exactly that type of thing. And cities do lots of sponsorship in various ways. If it's the public works guy putting up barricades to close the street, that's sponsorship. if it's having to do extra cleanup of the restrooms at the park because they got extra heavy use, that's sponsorship. Those are all types of things that cities do to help sponsor those kind of community events. But that's not managing, like Jill said, that's somebody else's event. You're helping them, and if the council, as you have in this case, decides to support them financially to help them with that special events coverage, the whole goal is, our goal is not to say, hey, my wife knows me, I love parades, I love these community events, and our organization wants to help you have those events because we know they're important. But again, it's if something happens, who's really in charge and who should be responsible? Does that make sense?
So in that, thank you for bringing up May Day, because that was another one. I think that they were kind of unhappy that this year we weren't able to have the pony rides. And even their special event insurance didn't cover the pony rides. And so the pony ride people had to provide their own insurance. And I guess they weren't able to do that, and so they weren't able to be there, and that was all kind of figured out at the last minute. So there was a lot of heat about that, but I don't know if you have anything to
I'll take
add
some of the
about
blame on that. I mean, we don't cover animals like that on pony rides.
that.
I will also say, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but you know what, if you've got somebody offering pony rides that kids are riding on, that kids can fall off of and get hurt, and they don't have insurance, then that makes me say, what kind of operator is this?
Local farm owner.
Local farm owner, nothing will happen,
A good,
Yeah.
big-hearted
It's
person,
good.
but
I
not
understand.
maybe the most business
Right.
I mean,
focused. Yeah.
I drive my family
It's
crazy.
been a small town for a really, really long time.
I understand. And I drive my family crazy. I'll tell a story about myself. 2 years ago, our wonderful daughter-in-law said that for one of our grandsons, they were gonna get a bounce house. And I go into the bounce house, and you know what's going on and all this stuff. And my son is going, oh, there's Dad on his risk management thing in it. And I can see my wife of a long time saying, shut up, Roger. So Meredith says, well, they have signed an agreement. I said, yeah, let me read it. Because they're transferring all their risk to you. And you're gonna have 15 kids bouncing around in this house. And what happens if one of them comes out and lands wrong and is now paraplegic for the rest of their life? Well, they didn't have a bounce house at you. So the next year I was told with no doubt of what the message was do not ask what they are doing on their birthday. Stay quiet. Yes, dear. So that's the point. We live this stuff every day. We deal with cities every day. We see what happens. We want you guys to have fun events. We want you to have those things. But again, where it's appropriate, and many times it is, let's transfer that risk to the organization, the individuals that are running it, to help protect them, first of all, and secondly, the city. Does that make sense? Yeah, and unfortunately, you're right. Jill and her colleagues at courts around the state, they're the ones that get to try and explain the reason why. But the pony rides, and Jill reached out to us that I was involved in that. The pony rides, it's about the city's not running the ponies, and it's But if something had happened, and I hate to say this, and folks, I get very cynical having done this as long as I've done it. If some little kid had fallen off one of those ponies and was injured or paralyzed, in this day and age, Mom and Dad are going to want some money. And if Farmer Jones doesn't have it, who are they going to reach out to next? And yet you guys had nothing to do with running the event. And so that's why we feel very strongly about this. It's not about not doing those things. And again, isn't it telling that when the carriers that do special events aren't covering this, they're not covering it for a reason. Now, you can find, for a price, they can find somebody that can do it. And again, I understand well-meaning citizens just trying to help the community have a good time. And I wish we could go back to those days. I really do.
I've seen Jill take heat for a lot of stuff, and she's just trying to make us do things the right way. And after even myself, like, what? After finding out the whole extent of everything, total respect. So yeah, she's got a tough job.
If you saw some of the stuff that our claims folks deal with every day, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
People just don't take responsibility for themselves anymore. But that's the society we live in, and we aren't going to do a lot about it. Any other questions, council, on special events or some of the other items?
So does the risk pool like do they like to not see us charge for the parks? Because it increased our risks, correct?
It doesn't increase your risk. First of all, that's a policy decision that for the
Okay.
council to make. We don't have a position whether you should or not. But by doing that, then we lose one level of protection.
Which increases risk.
It increases the exposure to us.
Liability.
Potentially, yeah. But at that point in time, it increases. So let's just say that a kid's down there playing on the waterfalls and slips and hits their head, and somebody thinks that the city was at fault. Well, with the recreational immunity statute, we could say, city's not charging, and all that. Without having that means we're going to have to defend the city, which we're prepared to do. It just takes one layer of protection away from us, and that, again, this is a policy decision for the council. We don't have a position one way or the other whether you charge or not.
Is that for only charged
That's
events,
what I was gonna say.
or is that just for,
'Cause there's
for everything?
there's two situations here. We have
Right.
a kid riding his bike down there
I
any day of the
understand
week
where, like,
and playing in the water, and then we have a wedding where there's a kid that attending the wedding, then he gets hurt. There's two situations. There's two circumstances there.
So, and it's a good question, and quite honestly, I'm going to tell you what the law says, but who's going to make that decision ultimately is the court.
Right.
So I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but let me just give you the pertinent parts of it. So this applies to any public or private landowners, blah, 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 who allow members of the public to use them, that's the land, for purposes of outdoor recreation. And then it talks about cutting wood, and hunting, and fishing, and camping, and picnicking, and swimming, and blah, 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 and rock climbing, and blah, 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 blah. It's one of the few laws that continues to get expanded. What is the definition? Seriously, what is the definition of recreation? Okay? Blah, 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 blah. Without charging a fee of any kind thereof, shall not be liable for unintentional injuries to the users. So it would be an interesting question if it was just an ordinary citizen down at the park who got injured, are you protected by this? Versus a group that has paid a fee. I feel pretty confident we could say that group that's paid a fee, we've lost that protection.
But they also supposedly had insurance because we asked them to get insurance too.
Supposedly, right. So it's a great question, Councilman. It's going to depend on the circumstances of the case at the time, and whether, I'm not going to guess, whether the court would say, well, because they charged for some things, they've lost this immunity or not. But certainly for group activities, clearly, I feel pretty confident that you would have lost that. Unfortunately, every one of these situations, but you know what? We don't want to get in that position where we have to figure this out in court. Right?
Right.
That's
One of our
what
big hot button reasons is because recently, we never had any services to the park.
Right.
So we never had any ability or any services to charge for except for going down and having the park. So that's why it's kind of a hot button issue.
Well, I heard the report tonight that you now have power out there to building the park.
Actually,
And I've asked your public works guy, well, what do you have this building out here? He said, well, we hope to have power out here one of these days. And that's wonderful, because that gives you opportunities to do other things with that facility. And maybe that gives you the opportunity to put up security lighting. as an example. Or maybe that gives you the opportunity to, as some of our cities have done, develop it into some RV parking spots that have utilities to them. Or maybe that gives you the opportunity to have a concert there where you have a band that doesn't need to bring a noisy generator. I'm just giving you ideas. But it gives you opportunities. And that's exciting. So, great question, council members. And I don't have, but that's how the law is written. And it's, unfortunately, some of the stuff we have to let the courts make those decisions on what's happening, and that's where we're trying to keep you guys out of that. Mayor Pro Tem, any other questions? I've taken quite a bit of your time on, you've got a busy evening tonight, but
No, you've
it's our honor to
satisfied,
come here.
Roger, you've satisfied my questions. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
coming
guys
down and
very
talking
much.
with us.
And again, congratulations on being on the council and to the citizens to be involved, to be out here. I can tell you what, there's a lot of cities that there's nobody in the audience on council meeting nights. And you folks are involved in what's going on, and that says a lot about the city of Vader. So just a personal comment for that. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4 on the agenda, public hearing. This is for the Community Development Block Grant that was covering the side sewer project. This will be the closeout hearing for I&I, the closeout hearing for I&I Reduction Project Phase 1. Was there any verbiage that you looked up? No. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:18 p.m. It's my understanding that some citizens were contacted that had this work performed in case they did have any statements regarding it. Is anyone interested in speaking about this project? All right, seeing none, I'd like to close this public hearing at 7:19 p.m. Item number 5 on the agenda, council to consider payment for side sewer replacement project. Jill, would you like to explain this, please?
Sure. So I can't give you names or locations or anything because it's supposed to be confidential who received this assistance on this project. But we are calling them homeowner R, and that was the designation that they got. It was found after they were part of the first project, and several months later they started having backup problems in their sewer, and so they called a roto-rooter out and had him look at it and said, well, your line is an old clay line and it's got roots going every which way through it. And they said, wait a minute, our whole line was supposed to have been replaced with this new line. And so they called us, and we did several inspections and had people come out and do TVing the lines and stuff. And sure enough, only part of it had been replaced. And apparently the original contractor, it was kind of a weird line, and it was really long, more than what you would anticipate. And so I'm guessing in their attempt to hurry and get things done, they didn't quite check it out thoroughly enough. And so a lot of their line was not replaced that should have been replaced under this grant money. We did still have some grant money that hadn't been spent yet from this project, and so the grant people said, yes, you can finish this job, and yes, we have a responsibility to finish this job because we signed an agreement that we would do this job all the way. And so we went through all the processes that the grant and federal people require, because they give us the money so they get to pull all the strings. But we went through that process, we got it replaced, they have their whole line is now replaced. But now we need to be able to pay them for that. And so the way it worked out is that the homeowner had to contract with somebody who is on the city's public works roster to do the work, and then we pay the resident for the invoice amount, and then the resident pays them. So this is just releasing those funds to the resident so that they can pay the contractor.
Are these out of the grant fund?
These are out of the grant funds. It brought our grant total all the way down to, from $716,000. We've spent everything down to $700. So, so we had just enough left over to finish that and get that project done, so.
Any other questions? Seems pretty
But
open
because it
close
is
case.
part of the grant, as with any of the payments we made out from the grant, we need to do council
I'd like
approval.
to make a motion to approve the release of the funds to complete the private side sewer replacement at the cost of $4,312.00.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
You have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the release of funds, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item number 6 on the agenda, update on parking project at City Hall. And I think this was
me.
This is you, right?
Yeah. So, finally got, after the 4th of July was over, because that's taken a lot of time, but we finally got to check into what exactly we needed to do to be able to do this parking project and how to be able to bid it out. So I spent a lot of time with the engineer and with the free engineer at MRSC, because they're awesome, they help cities a lot. Basically, what it comes down to is we just have to make sure that 3 things happen: that we have no wetlands in the area that we're talking about working, that we can verify where the property lines are. So that means that we don't necessarily have to do a survey. If we can, we may need a land surveyor to come out and show us where the corners are, but we don't necessarily need to get a survey done. But we need to know where the property lines are, and we need to verify that whatever we do does not cause a problem with sewer drains. So, after we found that out, we started talking about, okay, how much room do we really need? So, on this map, this is pretty close to the actual, to actual measurements. You'll see 8th Street has been partially vacated, so we only have a 40-foot wide strip along 8th Street. The pavement itself is just about 20 feet, and so that only leaves us 10 feet of distance between the edge of the road and the edge of the easement. And that wasn't enough room to do the head-in parking that was originally submitted. However, it is enough room to do the parallel parking. So potentially you could do parallel parking. So I just put together some little block boxes, as you guys can see. And if some of you guys in the community, there's 2 I think there, but if you want to look at them. I just gave you some ideas of what might fit where based on what the state standards are for parking space size. And so if you see at the top of the page, it explains what the widths and lengths need to be. And so that was just some suggestions. So because we couldn't do the original idea, it hasn't gone out to bid yet. So council just needs to, I guess at this point, kind of reevaluate and look at, if you want to continue with this project, how do you want to continue? And, do any of these options make sense to you, or something else, or whatever? It's kind of in your lap now to decide how you want to proceed forward and if you want to proceed forward.
I've never walked back here, but it looks like there's a big area behind the building.
It looks like that, but that's not the case.
Okay.
There's, I didn't show it on the map, but there's barely enough room for like 2 parking spaces back there, and it would be tight.
Right behind here, you have
Yeah.
one of the main niches.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's-
okay.
Right behind this purple tree, the plum tree out there, it's a
Storm
ditch,
drain
so
all the way up there.
there's not much, there's nowhere to turn around. You can pull in, but then you almost have to back out.
Yeah, when I drew up the original plan, I put angled parking along the B Street, or the 8th Street there, and
But we
just
only
trying
have
to get us
10.
some 7 parking spots, you know.
I know, but we only have 10 feet
There's
at the
10 feet.
most
I was
there.
trying to angle it
Yeah,
probably more
and
than,
that's just not quite enough. Actually, when you do it at an angle, you need a longer distance.
and I know here on 8th Street, between the door here and B Street, that there is a driveway blocking one of these little spots. So I mean, I believe this little area to the right of the door here is only gonna give us like 3 of these parallel spots because of a
Oh,
tree.
because
and
there's another
There's a driveway.
driveway there.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
all right.
So,
You see, A Street is still 80 feet wide. And we still have
oh,
a lot, so you can see the easement is still 80 feet wide, which is why the nose-in parking would work there. And it might also work, I only put it on the west side of the road. It could also work on the right side, on the east side, but there's already a small sidewalk there. And I didn't know if that would be a good idea or not. With the sidewalk already there, we'd kind of have to take the sidewalk out in order to do that. So,
but not for parallel.
not for parallel, you're right. If you did parallel parking along there, yeah, you could do some parallel parking along there.
Those are only 40-foot city streets.
Right.
No.
Which
Right.
ones?
That's why,
Four.
that's why we're only able to go 10 feet out of the road.
Yeah.
On 8th, it's
So
40
on
feet.
8, on 8th Street, it's 40.
But A is still 80, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. A is still 80 feet.
Well, folks could already park down there on A parallel if they wanted to right now.
In the
I mean,
grass.
and it's,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping them from doing that without making modifications. Just
That's
folks don't because it's 2 blocks away. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, it's not as close. You're right.
Whatever.
But once we found out where exactly the property corners are on the property right next door to us and the one across that the fire department owns, then we can see if the road is actually placed in the middle of the easement or not. Then that will tell us
Right.
how much distance we actually have between the
It's kind
edge
of
of the road.
over this way. a little
Yeah, and
bit,
it
so
might
we
be
got
more,
maybe-
because where it says the property lines are on here isn't necessarily
Right.
exact,
If we had
so,
just 4 more feet, we could do angled parking right there and we can get
yeah, it's possible,
twice as
it's
parking.
possible,
Right.
so.
So it sounds like there's still things up in the air on this.
Yeah, so I just need direction to know what council wants me to go forward with. And if we do have a land surveyor come out, that will cost, I haven't found out how much that will cost to have him come out and just place the markers or whatever.
Well, my suggestion is this street right out here on the other side, we should see what it's gonna cost us to make parallel parking over the ditch
Mhm.
and just see what that costs.
Okay.
And then, you know, we already have a sidewalk over here, let's just see, you know, it don't cost a whole lot to throw in some gravel and upgrade the ditch
Mhm.
and to make it look like parking so that people would park there.
Mhm.
I think that's really what it needs to do to entice people to actually park somewhere. Otherwise, they're just gonna pull right in because there's nobody parked in the EMS parking.
Yeah.
So, so I guess it's still up in the air. I would like to see what this, filling this ditch in and putting the parallel parking in all the way up this 8th Street here on this block, and then possibly just finishing that off with some gravel to make it into a more of a enticing parking spot for city hall parking.
So the gravel you're talking about is on A Street, next to the
Street.
sidewalk?
Just to make that into like a parking
Okay.
enticing area, and then finding out what it's gonna cost us, filling in this ditch and putting in a culvert and a water collection site on each end and things like that. That's gonna be a little bit of engineering going on, so. not sure what that's gonna be on our, surveying. We're still gonna have to do the surveying.
We would still have to know where the property lines
Yeah.
are. If we already know, like
No
if the
matter
fire
what.
department already knows where the
Right.
markers are, then we wouldn't have to have a land surveyor come out. But I'm assuming that no one knows where exactly those markers are, if there are even markers there. So we would have to have the property lines located.
Right.
We don't have to have them
I think
do a
that's,
full drone
no matter
survey or
what, which
anything.
way we go, we're gonna have to do that anyway.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna have to verify that. Yeah, whatever we do.
So I make a motion that we approve, going ahead with getting the surveyors on 8th Street to figure out the distances where our road, our parking can be, so that we can further our discussion on this, because until then, we don't really know where we can.
Have the surveyor come up and give us the points of the city street.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
on 8th
Yeah.
Street.
And it gives us how much room we got, because
Yeah,
yeah.
until we really know, we can't really figure out what we're gonna do.
the,
Until we really know what those numbers are, we can't really decide what we're gonna do yet.
Okay.
then we
So-
can figure out what the project's gonna cost. us.
Right.
Right, and so we don't have funds set aside for this project, so the money to pay the surveyor, and I don't know how much that costs, I've never checked into
Right.
it. Some of you might have more idea than I do, but what fund do you want me to pay that out?
Well, it's been found out in the city, the surveys of some of the streets are on the property line.
Uh-huh,
Right.
right, but we're trying to figure out where this money to pay the
How are we
surveyor,
gonna pay the survey guy?
yeah.
What fund?
because it's not already in the budget for this project,
Can
this
we
is
take it out of
something
the
new.
EMS budget?
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think kind of some of the areas that we might have a little bit of play, you know, in the budget, is possibly in the street budget, because we did get, some money for a street permit that we weren't anticipating. So that's kind of extra beyond what we anticipate, so we could use that possibly. And then the only other places that I can think of things that aren't already kind of spoken for is unfortunately things like the park fund.
Can you just get us a quote,
Yeah,
how
can
much it
we
would
get
cost?
a quote, and then
And
we'll
then we'll
find out where the
discuss it
money can
next.
come from.
Okay.
Then we know what that
All right.
number is, so
That's
we
true,
might be
yeah,
overthinking it.
yeah.
There
Okay,
might already be markers there too.
Yeah, there might be.
yeah,
And so
Yeah.
Brandon on the park board,
oh,
that's what he does.
oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, well, it's nice to know somebody. Yeah, so we'll
All
have
right.
to talk to him. Okay.
So do we need a motion or anything like that, or did I make one?
Well, you did make a motion to have a surveyor do the property line locates,
Mhm.
and it was seconded.
Okay.
So we have a first and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, because shouldn't we withdraw that until we get enough?
That would be my suggestion, because if you guys can just say, hey, check into it and bring it back to us next time. You don't have to do a motion to do that.
Mhm.
Would you like to rescind your original motion?
I would rescind that, let's
Okay.
find a cost out for this, and if Brandon from the park board is certified in order to give
Yeah,
us this,
exactly.
then maybe we can go through him and get a
Okay,
better deal.
check into that.
All right. Any other discussion on this parking project? Hearing none, moving on. Item 7, ongoing street projects. This is my turn. So as everyone saw, county came through yesterday and did the most of the approved grant chip seal work. All of that work came out of a grant through the Transportation Improvement Board, which is a division of Washington State. We didn't have to pay for any of it. There were a couple of issues that have come out of it. There were two, if you look on the handouts I gave out, the second page, you see here that there are 2 yellow circles from D to E on 6th. and on B Street from 8th to 9th. They're right in the middle of the runs that they should have done, and they skipped them. However, they did do 2 unapproved areas, the section of 9th between D and E, and the section of 10th between D and C. So I was in contact with AKS Engineering today, the folks that helped us get the grant for this, and they're going to talk to county and figure out what happened. Well, they already talked to county, and there was just miscommunication as far as their guys coming out and marking the streets. So the good news is the work has been approved through the state. They're going to come back. County's going to come back out on Monday, and they're going to chip seal these 2 sections that they missed. The up in the air section is, what about this work that they did that wasn't approved? So our engineering company is going to talk to TIB with the state and see if we can get a little bit of extra money to cover those extra sections. If not, there's going to have to be a discussion with county over who's going to take care of the work that they did that we didn't ask
Isn't
for.
that something that their insurance company would take? Because,
You're asking the wrong guy.
right?
So it's up in the air.
Oh, where's that guy at?
I know, where'd he go?
So we'll find out. It's ongoing, and we'll. It was their mistake. They can't take the gravel back. It's stuck to the road now. So.
Yeah.
So, that's the chip sealing project. You guys will see a little bit more work on Monday on those two sections.
Awesome.
Going back to the first page, this is the 6-year transportation plan. This was put together by council before I even got involved. These are the 11 items, 11 street sections, front and back on this piece of paper, that council approved, being the most important to the least important. And in color next to each item, you can see where we are on them. In green, you can see that they're done is the grant through the TIB that got done yesterday. That's item 5 and 10. Item 11 is A Street from 5th to 6th. This is down in front of Worden Park. This is going to be included in our grant request that AKS Engineering is helping us on. So hopefully it'll get funded for the next development cycle or grant cycle. 4 other items, 3, 4, 8, and 9. Those are 3, 8, and 9 are all part of the EF and Park Street loops, and they've never been paved. And the other section is G from 6th to 7th up off the highway. That's also never been paved. So I just wanted to, going down the list, I didn't want to pave things that had never been paved when we have pavement that needs to get fixed. So we can address those at another time. My question to council is, and information to the council. Yesterday we had an asphalt company come out, Norfolk Asphalt and Paving, and we walked around town to look at the items in blue here. And you can see on the last page, you can see those items in blue. We are getting estimates from them to get new pavement on all those sections. Those are from the 6-year transportation plan. I was hoping that they'd have those tonight, and we could know that within our budget that we have currently, we could afford to get those done. And then we could ask the mayor to seek out the additional bids we need. We need to have 3 bids, is that correct?
I believe so.
For a project of this magnitude, you need at least 3 bids. So we'd have the first one, and then we'd need to advertise for 2 more. Unfortunately, those aren't ready yet. Jill, could we? I don't know if we really want to. I'd rather not wait 2 weeks to do that. Could we still put out a request the mayor to advertise for bids for?
Yeah.
As long as this work is covered in the scope of work in the original bid, so we can say here's item number 1, and we could get 2 more.
Oh, yeah, the council can say, yeah, we want to get 2 other bids, even though we don't know what the first ones
Right.
come out at, we still want to get 2 other bids on the same scope of work. Yeah, you guys can do that, because it doesn't cost us anything.
That's what I would request the council to do, is to approve the
Then-
mayor to get additional bids so that we can get rolling on these paving projects. And between this work and all of the chip seal work and the grant work.
Really?
We're hoping to have a majority of over half of the city with new streets here by the end of the summer, or by the end of next summer.
Yay.
Working on it.
Should this one, the one that's in front of City Hall, should that include the parking area?
It might possibly be.
That is some new
So instead of
information.
just getting gravel,
We could have them widen that section. If we put the culvert in and they could, when we put the gravel on, they could widen that section, the 6 feet or whatever it would be. I doubt that would be very much to add on to any
yeah.
estimate.
Are these blue,
Hmm?
are these already been approved?
No,
Years past?
those were on the 6-year transportation plan that previous councils had said, these need to get taken care of first.
The 6-year transportation plan is the only thing we can spend street money on, but we update this plan every year. So we haven't come to that yet this year, but basically, if there's a street that's not on here that you want done, then when we do the update, we need to make sure that street is added on to the plan. Because the state requires us to have all these different plans, the park plan, the street plan, all the different plans, and we're only allowed to spend money on what's already approved in the plan. So
And I know what you're thinking Annan Road.
Well, I'm thinking.
No, you're thinking
Yeah,
Annan
I'm
Road.
thinking Annan
Yeah, I know
Road.
you are.
But I'm
So-
thinking I'm seeing D Street that sticks way, there's something we're gonna talk about later.
This, so while he was out here, while North Fork was out here, we went and we took at Annan in there in front of the businesses. And he is putting together a bid for a 3-inch thick asphalt from the highway all the way to past the convenience store. There's a sign down there,
It's like 500 feet.
yeah, something like that. He's gonna put together a bid for that. The city, we know this, the city can't at this time pay to fix that because it is the city's belief.
Right.
And we have records to say that the railroad owns that section of road. So the Annan Road, right in front of the restaurant and the convenience store.
They don't own all Anna.
I know.
Not all of it, just that,
I know.
their easement is that
It's
section.
always been the debate,
Yeah.
Andy, so. It's
So
always been the debate.
here's the strategy. The strategy is we get a bid, we get an estimate, and we say, we get a hold of the right person at the railroad, and we say, we've done the legwork, here's an estimate. You pay this guy to do this work, and it's done. So that's my strategy going forward, is how we're gonna handle Annan Road. So, and he was gonna put a rain bar in, which is kind of a high speed bump, close to the buildings for drainage issues, to keep the water from going under the buildings and things like that.
Right.
So that's the strategy for Annan Road. But that's separate from this. That's next. These were just the highlighted items from the transportation plan that previous councils had highlighted as being the big issues in town. And if you can see, once these are done, plus the work that's already completed and the other work that we're going to put in the grant, that'll be everything except the EF Park Street loop. And that'll be next.
But
Isn't
F Street's private,
Right,
so.
part of it is,
Right.
not all of it.
There's several streets in town that are marked as streets, like G Street, which is not a city street. So those are issues to overcome and
F
work
Street is
around.
only private from 10th Street south.
Right.
The northern parts of F Street are still city responsibility, so. But if we're talking about that Park Street loop, you're correct, F Street is not owned.
But we're not working on those right now. Those are not paved, and we'll work on those, or not work on those, as the case may be, later. So my request from council now is, can we approve the mayor to seek bids for this scope of work that's listed on the last page?
Are you making a motion?
I was asking for one.
We need a motion.
I would make a motion.
Why not?
I would
that-
say that's a good idea, yeah.
I'd make a motion that we approve the mayor to take bids on the 6-year transportation improvement plan that has already been set in place. And I don't think any of you.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second to approve the mayor to seek bids for the scope of work listed here on the last page. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Awesome.
That concludes our agenda for tonight, except we have a hand.
I'd just like to take this opportunity, since of all the bad things that have been happening in our world, I'd like to thank our officer back there for his service to our, not only our community, but Lewis County. Thank you.
And on that happy note, meeting is adjourned at 7:47 p.m.